my name's Karla. I've been writing professionally since 2015 and got my agents in 2016. And I think before I kind of moved into sort of professional writing and started getting paid for it, I was mostly just kind of writing like little bits here and there, not really showing anybody because I just didn't think that I could really be a writer. I mean, it was so completely not on my radar that even though I went to uni and studied media and sociology, at a uni where there was a screenwriting module on the media course, I didn't take the module because I just didn't, it just, never crossed my mind that I could be a writer. And so it took me a really long time to sort of get into it. And I think it was 2013, I started working on Casualty. I'd got onto the production trainee scheme at the BBC, which had a year and a half's worth of various different placements all over the BBC. And one of those placements you had to go outside of London to do, and I was living in London at the time. And so I went to Cardiff and I worked in the script department on Casualty and read loads of first draft scripts, which I'd never really done before. I'd only kind of looked at my scripts and thought, these are really bad in comparison to like what I see on TV and what I see on stage. And I had no idea that, you know, you get a lot of help along the way and everything's kind of redrafted and polished, and writing is actually a really collaborative process and one of kind of turning a sow's ear into a silk purse. And God, you really see that on shows like Casualty, and reading like the first draft of a lot of these writers' scripts kind of made me think, oh, maybe my stuff isn't as bad as I thought. And so I wrote a play, and a friend of mine who was a script editor on the show read it and said it was decent and that I should send it out, which I did. And then I won a competition and it got staged over 3 nights in Liverpool. And it wasn't like, you know, a big thing. It wasn't like, you know, 6 weeks in the West End or anything like that. But it was a start. It was a start that totally made me think, God, this is really easy. I'm going to get everything made now. And that really did not happen at all. And it was a lot of just applying for stuff after that. I applied for so many things. And I actually think there was a period of time when I was applying for probably about 150 kind of call outs a year on average. Yeah, there was a point where I went through and I like counted up how many things I'd applied to. And, you know, of all of those things, I would get probably 2 or 3 things a year, absolute maximum. And most of those things were quite small things. But it was just sort of enough to keep me going. It was that whole thing of like, you know, every time you feel like you're going to quit, there's this moment where it's like, oh, I've just had like a little opportunity, and so I should keep going. And so I did. But it took, you know, a really long time. And the next kind of big opportunity I got was, does anybody remember Ideas Tap? There was this great, Ideas Tap was good, wasn't it? And I won a call out through Ideas Tap that offered me 6 months of feature film mentoring through a company called Cowboy Films, who make Last King of Scotland, and Fish Tank, and they made Top Boy back then as well. And I worked with this amazing development producer there who kind of taught me structure and the importance of structure, and gave me this amazing Excel spreadsheet that I still use to this day, that I use to just put all my plot points in. And it's very, very useful. And worked with her for 6 months, was supposed to be writing a film, and ended up writing the pilot for a TV series, which then went on to be optioned because she left Cowboy Films, moved to ITV Studios, and ended up passing my script on to her exec producer there. So it got optioned, and by that point I'd also won another call out through Line Pictures, and they were doing it was sort of a writing scheme, but also sort of a writer's room, 5 days in Liverpool, working on a show. It was somebody else's idea, these two guys, and they employed 4 of us to kind of storyline this show, which never got made. But I got paid for the writer's room, and I got paid to write a treatment for an episode. So by this point, I'd kind of proven that I could make money from writing, and that was really how I got my agents. And we'll talk a little bit more in further detail about kind of agents and how to get agents a little bit later on. And in terms of what I'm doing now, I have been working on Hollyoaks for about a year and a half now. So I'm on my 8th commission. I run a theatre company called Dead Good Theatre, and we make theatre together, and all of us are kind of interested in acting, but many of us do other things as well, like directing, or in my case, writing. And there's people who are kind of interested in doing things that maybe they haven't tried before. So we all kind of work together to make theatre, although in the last year, obviously that hasn't been so great. But before the pandemic hit, we put on a show that I wrote at the Bunker in London called Leaving, and it was my debut full-length show. It was 2 hours long. There was 11 of us in it. And it was super, super fun, and God, I miss those times. But yeah, I guess I kind of want to get to know you all a little bit, and what your interests are and what you're hoping to sort of get out of this session. And because a lot of you aren't on camera, I think I'm probably just going to pick on the people that are, and have you just kind of say your name, how long you've been writing, and what you're hoping to get out of this session, you know, if you've got a query or whatever. So can I start with, is it Tegan or Tygan? Tegan.
Tegan, hi.
Tegan. Hi, Tegan.
Hello. Nice to meet you. So I've been writing for only about 2 years, kind of probably where you were before, the first bit that you kind of spoke about. It's just very much me doing odd little bits in my room. And then it's kind of got to the point over the last maybe 6 months where I've started to kind of submitting to various competitions, and it's kind of odd little things of kind of getting back of like shortlisted or longlisted. And I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, well, it's not awful. Now I just need to work out what I want to do with this and what the next step is, and also do things like this where I'm meeting other writers who are in a similar position. I trained as an actor, probably like yourself. So I'm just surrounded by amazingly the industry, but all primarily actors. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, great, thank you. So I guess that's kind of is part of what you're trying to do, sort of create your own work that you can also be in.
No, I really struggle with that kind of, I'm writing it for me, because then you just write like a big part based on a mixed race girl who's from the north. I do
that all the time.
I write a lot about my own experiences, but I really just don't picture myself in them. I want other people to tell my words in their own way. I find that just more exciting. And of course, you know, acting work comes and goes, but there's something then nice of me as an actor taking someone else's words. So I do tend to keep them very separate. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's definitely something in kind of the objectiveness or objectivity of being able to sort of stand back from the work. You know, sometimes when you're acting in it as well, you're almost a little bit too in it, aren't you? But I think it's something I love, because acting can be, it can be one of those professions where you feel like you're constantly getting doors slammed in your face, and you want to be in the room. You want to be in the room, and it can be really difficult to get in the room, or to even get in the house sometimes. And I think one of the great gifts of writing and being able to create your own work is you know, just being able to go, well, I'm just going to build my own house then, bye. And yeah, I don't think there's any shame in that, or shame in casting yourself in your work, because so many of the greats have. And I think in America, it's an even bigger thing than it is over here, of people casting themselves in their own work. And I think part of that is because in America, there is a culture of just not being ashamed of saying what you want to do, and, you know, being a little bit more, yeah, I'm going to put myself in the center of this, why not? But yeah, if that's not something that you're into at this stage, then that's totally cool as well. And it's all about making the most of the objectivity that comes with that, I think. Danica, we've met before, but tell me about yourself. Hello.
Oh God, I forgot. So I have been writing for a very long time, but haven't shared it with anyone until maybe the past year and a half, and still feel really nervous around it all. I've had my first play commissions. That feels like a real big milestone to get to.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I feel really like feel really lucky to have had that already. But it was something that the right opportunity came along at the right time, and it was just, yeah, it was just the right thing to do. I'm trying to, like, in my own artistic practice, find like a basis for my work, and kind of investigating what my process is and what that means to me. But I suppose out of this session, I'm trying to just get some more information, because I still feel like I'm treading water and I've not really got anything to hold on to on the sides. Like, not in a swimming pool, I'm in a sea, and I'd like to be in a swimming pool where there's edges where I can go to and rest. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah,
that makes sense. I think just off the back of what you were saying about having a process, I think there's a lot of weight and a lot of pressure put on this idea of having a process. And I think a lot of writers, their process evolves and changes from project to project. I know that mine does. You know, people have asked me questions before, like, oh, do you listen to music when you're writing? And I'm like, well, it depends on what I'm writing. Sometimes I want complete silence. Sometimes I want really loud music. And sometimes I'll listen to music a little bit before. Sometimes I plan things meticulously, but there's been the odd occasion where I've written something and just gone, bleh. Possibly advise that slightly less, because then you have to kind of go back and unpick things. But I think, yeah, don't put too much pressure on yourself to have like a specific process that you are married to every single time, because, you know, you'll be doing, throughout your writing career, you'll be doing so many different types of projects for so many different types of people and different venues, and, you know, screen, and, you know, sometimes theatre, and maybe you'll write a book, and, you know, I think the process, you get to decide the process at the beginning of each project. And if you get halfway through that project and feel like that process isn't working for you, you can change it up again. And I think that's one of the freedoms of essentially kind of working in such a, you know, it can be very isolating being a writer, because you do feel like you're just on your own a lot of the time, just writing. But the freedom in that is that you get to decide how you want to go about it. So yeah, and I think in terms of feeling like you're kind of wading through water and needing a bit of a shore, I think that shore comes with a sense of community, which I think can be really hard to find when you're a writer, because, you know, as I said, it can be a very isolating job. But when you start doing writers' rooms and you start meeting people through events like this, and you know, if you end up on a show where there's a few writers as well, as it is with Hollyoaks, we've got like a writers' WhatsApp group. There's power in having that sense of community, because what you'll find in the industry, particularly in TV, is that the people in power think that writers don't talk to each other, and we do, and we talk very freely with each other. And you know, I think it's really important, because otherwise you can get screwed over really easily. And, you know, my work husband, Dan, who I've known since my very first writing job, the writer's room that I did for Line Pictures back in 2015, we've stayed in touch. We're now working on a project together that he actually brought me onto. And, you know, we even talk about money, like we talk about it all. And it's really good because, you know, it protects us. So I think, yeah, like it's definitely about kind of finding your people and knowing that there are people that you can moan to if you need to have a moan, and there are people that you can celebrate with. And what you'll find is really great when a writer friend of yours gets an amazing opportunity is that, unlike when you get an amazing opportunity and you're like, oh, they're going to take it away from me and it's all going to go wrong, and imposter syndrome, you just get to be really happy for them. And it's like this really clean joy, because you don't have to worry about all the imposter syndrome or anything like that. You just get to live vicariously through them and get loads of insider knowledge out of them. And it's really great. So definitely find your people, and as you continue to find people, and don't be afraid of, like, you know, if anybody in this session says something that you think is really interesting or that you connect with, you know, message them on Twitter or follow them on Twitter or whatever, as we have done. So yeah, find your people, and that they will feel like you're sure. Lauren Nicole.
Hi, I'm an actress, I'm a writer. I'd say I most recently got into writing like a year and a half ago. Before that, I had done a bit of writing coming out of drama school, and like I did a competition for Triforce, Creative Networks. Yeah, and then off the back of that, I like won my writing one, and for like monologue slam, and then people after that were like, oh, maybe you should develop that piece. So I did start, but I didn't kind of put it out anywhere. And then I saw the call out for screenplay award, like with Box of Tricks and Sky Studios, and then I've been doing research on this play, so I submitted that. That's kind of the first competition I've submitted for, and then
you bloody won it.
and then no, I got to the finals, and then off the back of that I was like, oh, maybe I do have something to say. So yeah, and then since then I feel like I've gone from thinking that, a bit like what you said at the beginning, like I feel like I had this idea of what a writer was in my head, and I've got rid of that now, and now I'm like, stop, because I can't bear like self-pity or victim mode. So I'm like, but I felt like with writing, I had that idea in my head of like it being something that's just so unachievable. And now I don't feel like that. I feel like there's like so much room and scope. And I think a bit like what Danica said before about the process. I'm a bit like one of them people who wants, if it's a math solution to writing, I want like the answer. So what's the answer to the process? Like, give it to me and I will do that every time. But now obviously I'm realizing that that's not the case.
Yes.
Isn't it? And I don't think it helps that like I'm an impatient person anyway. So I'm like, come on, like what are you doing? But I think now the beauty of it is that like finding my way through it. Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at the moment, and yeah, I'm just kind of trying to explore, I suppose, different routes into it. Like my hope is that in like long term that I can hopefully have a career in this.
Well, you can, and you will, because you've totally got, you know, your head screwed on, and you've had that little bit of, I mean, they call it beginner's luck, which, you know, it's definitely what I feel like I experienced when I won that competition, because it was that little thing that I needed to go, you can do this.
Yeah.
But I actually think the word luck is a really negative word.
Yeah.
I remember when I got into the production trainee scheme at the BBC, and we had this like drinks with the director general night, and there were loads of like really influential BBC people there. And literally every other person I met went, God, you're so lucky, aren't you? And it gave me major imposter syndrome, because I was like, oh, it's just luck. Like, that's why I'm here, just because of luck. And I completely went out the window, you know, completely forgot the fact that 4,000 people had applied and only 11 people had got it. And I'd had to go through like this huge kind of culling process and 2 days of interviews, and it was really intense. But when people keep saying to you, you're lucky, look, you think it's just luck. But you always have to remind yourself that you didn't just buy a lottery ticket and get this, you know, amazing opportunity or amazing job or a place as a finalist in the Screenplay Award in your case. It's because you've worked for it and, you know, you've got something to say, as he said. And so I think it's just keeping that in the back of your mind, because there's going to be shed loads of rejections. You know, as I said before, like I used to apply for like 150 call outs a year. And yeah, get 2 or 3, which meant, you know, literally every other day I would receive a rejection email. And it's so demoralizing, and you spend such a long time thinking, oh man, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But I think with something as big as the Screenplay Award, you have to remember, whatever rejections you get, like the people who were judging that Screenplay Award, they weren't idiots. Like they are people who have been in the business for a really long time, and they would never have put you forward, you know, as a finalist if you didn't absolutely deserve it, and if you didn't have a really unique perspective to offer to the writing world and to the world of theatre and film and TV. So I think, yeah, just hang on to that, because it'll serve you well to hang on to that. And you mentioned that you're an actor as well. So are you interested in kind of creating your own work for yourself, or are you more interested in keeping things separate like Tegan?
Well, I'd never thought of, I've kept it quite separate. Only till recently I did a commission for Burn Bright, and it was like a Hear Me Roar event, and that was, you had to perform it, like you couldn't have. I know I watched you actually, you performed in one of the pieces, didn't you? I watched back a few to get an idea of what they were like, and I saw you in one of them. But yeah, that's the first thing, and apart from like the Triforce thing, but with now I feel like I enjoy, I'm writing from a place of truth and ideas that have, you know, happened to me, or that have happened to people I know. But I'm not writing at the moment with me in mind. I think my brain just can't handle that at the moment, most probably. Like I can't even get a gist on the people, never mind even thinking about myself. And I feel like it's given me, I am really enjoying just, I feel like it's given me some sort of like freedom again, if that makes, without sounding like wanky, like it's given me like that freedom of just being like, oh, I can just say all these things, and actually I'm not saying them, so someone else is. So good luck with that.
I totally get that. But what is a really amazing test, if you are an actor, is to look at each character in the play that you're writing, or the thing for the screen that you're writing, and go, would I enjoy playing this character? Would I get a lot out of playing this character? And it's a really great test, because if there's any characters in it that, you know, if you had to pick a name out of the hat and you were disappointed, then you'd know that you haven't really developed that character that much, and that character isn't that interesting. And I think the beauty of having loads of acting experience under your belt and seeing things from that actor's perspective is it makes you write in a very different way, because you're writing for the actors, you're writing roles that you would love to play yourself, you know. And also in terms of dialogue and writing stage directions, I mean, there's first-time scripts that I've read, and even, you know, more established writers, where you read their stage directions and you're like, how is the actor supposed to perform that? There's like, you know, a roller coaster of emotions that's all been written down in this stage direction. And people who have experience of acting wouldn't do that, because they know what the actor needs in order to come up with their best performance. So it's kind of a superpower, I think. And definitely something that, you should use as one. Tom, hello.
Hiya. I feel like a bit of an imposter, because I've been writing for too long. Like I entered the Screenplay Awards as well. I graduated in September from drama school, so I'm primarily an actor. So it feels weird to like class myself as a writer, but I need to stop that because it's silly. So yeah, not too long. And I'm sort of trying to combat that imposter syndrome you have, where it's like, when are you a writer? Can you class yourself as that and not be a massive liar? But I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally identify with that feeling. I remember thinking, right, well, I'm a writer when I start getting paid for it. And then I started getting paid for it, and then I was like, no, I'm a writer when I get an agent. And then I got an agent, and I was like, no, I'm a writer when I get like a TV show or a play commission and actually on stage. And I'll be honest with you, Tom, if you think that way, sorry, just waving at someone who's walking past at work, and the goalposts keep getting wider as they do, you'll never truly believe that you're a writer. And so you just have to reach a point where you go, do you know what? I write, therefore I am a writer. Because, you know, even at my stage, I'm like, but am I really a writer? And the thing is, you can't legitimize yourself and value yourself on whether you've got a play on or whether you've got something on the telly. You have to reach a point where you're like, do you know what? I believe my own source. I believe that I'm a writer because I want to be a writer, and I take time to write every day or every other day or however much you write. I'm investing a huge percentage of my heart in this. Therefore, I am a writer. And I think for your mental health, like it's important to be able to do that as an actor as well, because as an actor, like 90% of the time, you're probably not going to be working. But that doesn't mean that you're not an actor. Do you know what I mean? It just means that you're busy doing research for your whatever role will come next, because that's what life is. That's what the rest of the time is. It's research. And I think it's definitely true with writing. There's not many writers who are hugely successful who spend their lives just sat indoors writing constantly. The only person I know who does that and is successful is Jack Thorne. And yes, he is wildly successful, but genuinely, I don't know how he does it, because he literally starts at like 8 in the morning and finishes at like 8 o'clock at night. And that's what he does every single day. And I have no idea where he gets his inspiration from. The man is a machine. But I think most of us aren't really like that. And we need to be out in the world living and experiencing things. And, you know, even if that means that for 300 days of the year, we don't actually do much actual writing other than kind of journaling and kind of, you know, little bits here and there. If for that 60 days, we've kind of done that exploration of the world to kind of gain huge inspiration, and for 60 days, we write the most amazing play ever, then it works. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you're a writer, and it makes me sad when I see people on like Twitter, in their like Twitter bios and stuff, writing things like aspiring actor and aspiring writer. None of us are aspiring. Like, we're doing it, you know, it's a choice, and you have obviously made that choice, so own it. Yeah. Somebody called AS has their hand up. Where have they gone?
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Hi, I just sorry, my name's Addie. I'm on my phone, so I can't figure out the camera and changing my name. So I'm actually based in Liverpool, so I'm quite familiar with all the things that you're mentioning. I used to write and direct as well as act in my work and in other people's work as well when I was in university and just after. And then I moved away from writing for the stage because I started working on treatments for the screen with producers and excuse me, and writers based in Mexico and in the US. And then after that, I moved away from that to work in the theater. So I've been working in theater for over 14 years, but not as a writer and not as a director and not as an actor. I've been acting for the screen as well. And now I've decided I need to get back to my roots. I need to get back to my vocation, which is writing. And the feedback I've had in the past, which is you need to write as a writer and not as a director or as an actor, because I do put myself in, like what you mentioned about putting yourself in the actor's shoes and considering like the stage directions are feasible. And even recently at something I submitted for, I had feedback saying we need more dialogue and less stage directions. And I was like, okay, so the stage directions is key, because this screen is this scene is actually So I'm quite interested in like the migrant experience, being a first generation migrant myself. And I've worked with people who English is not their first language. So the way that they see and experience life in the UK is not language based. Actually, there's a lot of dialogue, non-dialogue based, excuse me, sorry, I've got a sore throat, non-dialogue based drama that I see in everyday life. And I don't write verbatim, but I could, that's what I bring into my writing. So I'm just finding it difficult to apply that feedback of write as a writer only and not as an actor and not as a director. So if you have any tips.
I've obviously never read your writing, but I don't know who is telling you this, because it's, yeah, I mean, one of the first things you learn about writing is show it, don't tell it. And there are lots of people who make the mistake of having shed loads of really expositional dialogue, and yeah, stripping it back is usually considered a positive thing. And I think, you know, particularly if you're writing stuff for the screen, I've watched short films where there's only like 3 lines of dialogue or no dialogue at all. So yeah, I don't know who you're getting your feedback from, but yeah, I think, you know, the idea of saying to somebody, write like a writer, I think just write like a human. Do you know what I mean? Like, and whatever your process is to get there. Yeah, I think it might be a good idea for you to diversify who you're getting your feedback from. And if you are creating work that reflects the immigrant experience, and maybe even creating work specifically for people who have experience of being an immigrant, then it might also be worth getting feedback from people who are immigrants. I think that there comes a point in your writing career where you start to think, okay, who am I actually writing this for? And I've definitely, you know, when I took my show to the Fringe in 2017, I got a couple of great reviews and a couple of terrible reviews. One of them was from the stage. I got 2 stars from the stage, and it was the first review I'd ever had. And I so wanted to get a good review from the stage, and I was so gutted when I got that bad review. And the guy who wrote it just didn't get what I was trying to do with the play at all. But then my friend Jack Rook, who'd also received 2 stars in the stage at that same Fringe, and we were in the same venue, said to me, yeah, but we're not writing these plays for them. You know, you're still getting great audiences, right? And I was like, yeah, like we're nearly selling out most shows. And he was like, well, that's who you're writing for. You know, we're not, a lot of us are not necessarily writing for these pale, male, stale critics. And sometimes, you know, you can read reviews in these publications of shows that you've seen that you thought were brilliant, and you're like, and they're giving them 2 stars, and you're just like, what? How can I take any of this seriously if you gave that 2 stars? Because that was amazing. But yeah, you know, it's such a subjective thing, this art that we do. And you know, if we feel like we have a unique perspective on the world, and we feel like we have something to say, you know, as I was saying to Lauren Nicole, then we have to hang on to that, and we have to keep going, and we just have to find the right audience for it, because the right audience is out there. I really do believe that. Libby.
Hi. I'm Libby. I've been writing for a long time, actually, probably like 4 or 5 years, but very on and off. I was mostly a theatre producer and director for a couple of years there, and only just kind of got back into it in this last year, which obviously isn't the best time to get into theatre stuff, especially. I think I was sort of similar to Tegan in terms of the, like, being shortlisted for a lot of stuff, being longlisted for a lot of stuff, and getting kind of ground down by it at a certain stage. But I think at the moment I'm really like trying to find the joy in it. And I think the community, especially, like, I wanted to come to this because I was like, oh, it'd be so lovely to just see a screen full of writers. And it is, but that's kind of the point for me at the moment.
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it, when you're getting on all these long lists and short lists and things like that. And, you know, I had a good few years of that experience as well. And I think the hardest thing about it is the hope. You know, you make it onto the long list, you're like, oh, maybe I'll make it onto the short list. And you even say to yourself, I just want to make it onto the short list. You know, I don't even need to win, but if I make it onto the short list, then I'll be happy. And then you make it onto the short list and you don't win, and you're like, oh, but I really then had started to think that maybe I could win. And it's really, really hard. You know, I haven't won a lot of things really at all, like really since the beginning. And you know, I've never been one of those people who's like made it onto like 30 under 30 lists or ones to watch lists or anything like that. But you sort of get to the point where you realize that actually you can make a really good career out of writing, even if you never make it on a single list and you never win any of these things that you could get shortlisted for or whatever. And what those shortlists and long lists are telling you is you were nearly there. Like you were in the top however many writers that applied for this, and there could have been thousands that applied for it. You know, I've never got anywhere with BBC Writers' Room, and the last time I applied for BBC, you know, put myself into the BBC Writers' Room call out, I was literally under commission writing a pilot for the BBC at the time, and I still didn't get anywhere. And I was just like, well, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? You know, Channel 4 screenwriting course is another one where I've never got anywhere with that. And then I met a couple of people who did the course and came to see my show at the Bunker. And they were like, yeah, but like the whole point of that course is that you maybe get an agent at the end of it and maybe make some contacts to see whether you could get something optioned. And you're already doing all of those things, so you don't need to be on the screenwriting course. And you know, I think you just kind of have to remember that like all of these lists, like, and all of these kind of opportunities, yeah, one of them might help you get a leg up, and if it does, then brilliant. But if you don't get any of them, if you go through that whole year and you apply for 150 things and you don't get a single thing, it's okay, because you're still a writer and you're still going to keep doing it. And at some point you will write something that you can send to somebody, or you'll put your own show on because you've got, you know, the producer background, so you know how, and somebody will see it who will love it, and that will lead to bigger and better opportunities. And that's kind of how it's done, really. And it can be done without, you know, winning any competitions or getting on any lists. So just have faith that, you know, you're still up there, even if you're not necessarily the winner. Because as well, a lot of these call outs are massively like underfunded and under-resourced. You know, I think particularly like the call outs that they do where it's like, this is a women's prize, or this is a BIPOC prize, or whatever. There'll be like one prize and everybody in the industry who fits into that category will apply and then feel like a failure if they don't get it. But actually the reality of these call outs is that it's like one or two people sat in an office, and maybe some like people who are like reading for free, who, you know, are just reading at home while they're watching the TV or whatever. And then they kind of decide who wins. And it can be really demoralizing if you don't win or you don't get up there, because it's so easy to pin all your hopes and dreams on it. But actually, it doesn't mean that much if you don't. If you do, it's amazing. It's a great opportunity. And, you know, the people who do get those prizes are really like the creme de la creme. And I think where it fails is that it doesn't necessarily polish the rough diamonds. But the great thing is, the more work you put into it, the more you can kind of polish yourself. And, you know, you can send stuff to people who know what they're talking about, who you trust, and they can give you feedback. And yeah, I think that's what it's all about. Somebody's put something in the chat about Channel 4. Julie, I tried for BBC and Channel 4 too. Good to have deadlines. I totally agree. And actually, that's one of the main things that I used to use these call outs for, is that it would just give me a deadline to work to so that I'd get things done. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. Samantha. Hello.
Hi, unmute. First of all, Lauren, I saw your Burn Bright piece. It was absolutely amazing. And you were one of my inspirations, actually. So you never know who you were reaching out to, but yeah, you were brilliant. I've I'm an actor and creative learning practitioner, but you know, classic things, I never thought I was a writer. And it all stems from education as well. I did my master's when I was 26 and got diagnosed then as having dyslexia, being dyslexic, and nobody really realizes that I am, because until I write things down on paper, that's when it kind of all becomes muddled and not quite messy. And all through my life, therefore, people have been like, oh, you can't write, you can't do this, you can't do that. And the more and more auditions now that have been coming up where you can write your own things, and I've been writing things, and people have been saying, that was really good. Where did you get that piece from? Or I'd say, oh, I write it. And they're like, oh, how have you managed to get this and that? And things just kind of started falling into place. And I'm really interested in research as well, in dramaturgy, and how everything kind of just comes together. And I've got a couple of ideas that I've now started putting down on paper and on the computer. But this is one aspect of the industry that's completely new to me. And it's like you were saying, I've been doing call outs for like dramaturgy things or for associate artists. And there's a project where I am at the moment that's looking for local actors, and I couldn't even get seen for it. And it's that feeling of kind of feeling like you've got a lot to give, but not giving the opportunity. So I thought, well, I'm going to start making my own opportunities now then. So I've just been looking for any opportunities to learn more about writing and how to submit things and how to make it happen, really. And that's what's brought me here today.
Amazing. It's so funny because I was literally just talking to somebody earlier about how this industry is a real magnet for dyslexic people, dyspraxic people, neurodiverse people. And I think there's something about having a unique way of looking at the world that comes from, you know, any one of those things that can contribute to you being a really great artist, because you've got a perspective that the rest of us just don't have and never will have. And a lot of the more successful people that I know in this business are neurodiverse, dyspraxic or dyslexic. You know, I've been working with someone for the last 2.5 years who is dyslexic and dyspraxic, and his ability to just spit out idea after idea after idea is just incredible. So I think it's kind of a superpower, and I think it's crazy that there has been this myth for so long in society that dyslexic people can't write. It's just that, you know, you might need to go about it in a slightly different way, and that can add a whole other layer of creativity to things that's actually quite exciting. But yeah, I know what you mean about feeling like you're just not getting the opportunities. And I'll be honest with you, you know, that never really goes away. It's something that I still experience even now, where it's just like, you feel like you're just banging on so many doors. And I think the thing to kind of hang on to is that it can change overnight, and it can literally just change like that. And it is about just kind of shining your light. And if you shine your light, at some point you will be found. And you have to kind of remember that, because if you don't shine your light, you will not be found. Nobody's going to find you because they can't see you. But, you know, I've had enough friends, and even, you know, in my own experience, like if I look at where I was even a year ago, I was in a very, very different place. My life has changed like astronomically since then. And my friend Dan, actually, who I was talking about earlier, we did our very first writing job together. We had very similar experience level. But he had this American manager stumble across his work about 6 months ago, and now he's getting jobs on American TV shows. And that's all kind of happened because of the pandemic and the fact that everything's on Zoom now. So, you know, before the pandemic, if you wanted to write on an American TV show, you'd have to uproot your life, get a visa, move to America for however long. And it was a really huge decision. And now, because everybody's on Zoom anyway, you can do a writer's room in America, but on Zoom, and stay here. And the hours are crazy, because you'll start at like 5 in the evening and finish at like 2 a.m. But the money is unbelievable. It is literally, you know, we're talking 12 times what you'd get paid to write on a UK TV show. So it's worth the crazy hours. But literally, I've watched in the last 6 months his life just completely change overnight, and go from, you know, a struggling writer trying to make ends meet And that can go on for a really long time. And then all of a sudden, and now he's buying a house in northwest London. Do you know what I mean? So it's really difficult. And I always think, you know, whenever people kind of comment on how much writers get paid to like write an episode of a TV show, you know, the first few episodes that you do for that TV show, you're probably just paying your debts off from all the years where you were broke, and trying to make it as a writer and working shit jobs. And, you know, it is a lot of that. It is a long time doing that. It is years of doing that. But then it can change overnight. And it's just hanging on to that hope that it will change. And it will change because it is just persistence. You just have to be so persistent. And this is 100% just a numbers game. And yeah, you've just got to have faith that eventually it will happen. Amy Rhiann. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? My internet's terrible. Is that okay?
You sound great.
Great, okay. I'm in a bit of shock actually, because I just realised I've been writing for nearly 10 years, which is uncomfortable. But I started in student theatre. I went to University of York and drama band, plays. I didn't have the luxury ever of just writing for myself, because my first play was stolen by a director I lived with. 3 weeks later, it was on in the drama band. So it just went from there, really. I did a master's degree up here in Edinburgh. And then I started... I thought I was doing good. I did like 45 submissions for competitions and stuff. Now I realised that you did 150, so I'm like, I need to go back in. I got a few I got 2 commissions last year, which was a terrible year to get commissions. But yeah, some of them now exist as podcasts and stuff. I guess I just kind of like starting to chip away at theatre, starting to wondering like what my next steps are and stuff. But I totally just see TV is like this mythical, untouchable other void that you just like, it seems so like just unbreakable. I also wanted to sorry, my internet is off again. Don't know if you can still hear me, you've all frozen. But I wanted to say to Samantha, I also got diagnosed as being dyslexic in my master's year. We should chat. But also I think it makes us better, like in terms of structure and patterns and dialogue. Like I honestly think it makes us better. So we should chat. But yeah, that's it, really.
Yeah, gosh. Well, first of all, I'm really sorry about what happened with that director. That must have been a hugely traumatic experience, and it's a real testament to who you are that you kept going after that. Because, you know, I think most of us in the industry have had that happen in some way, shape or form.
But not like stolen like from me. Like she was like, I'm going to put this on, let's do it. Like, okay. So before I'd even said, let's go ahead and do it, she was like, this is great, I'm putting it on. And I was like, okay.
Okay, so
like, all right.
Sorry, I thought you meant you'd had your work stolen from it. I was like, oh God, this is awful.
No, it was more like you can't keep this to yourself, can we please put it on? I've got 4 actors who want to do it. And I was like, okay.
Right.
So more like that.
I'll send you around to kneecap her then, shall I?
Well, she actually ended up directing 4 or 5 of my plays after that. So it was the start of a beautiful friendship. I was just a bit traumatized by the sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, you know, you said you've been writing for 10 years now. And I can understand how that might feel like a long time to not be maybe quite where you want to be yet in terms of sort of getting into TV and stuff. But I do think there's something in not wanting to be one of those artists that kind of explodes onto the scene and then burns out really quickly. You know, I think being a good artist who has a sustainable career is about kind of like the daily kind of plodding along and building amazing groundwork, you know, laying amazing groundwork. And then when you do get where you want to be, you'll be so ready for it. And you'll feel so prepared for it because you've laid all the groundwork for it. And I think as well, it's about, all that experience that you're going to have from various different sources. But TV versus theatre is a funny thing. Can I just see, I know there's not many of you who are on camera, but those of you who are not on camera, can you use one of the hands up emojis, please? How many of you think that getting into theatre is harder than getting into TV? Okay, interesting. Yeah, just a couple of you. How many, I'm going to include myself in that actually. How many of you think that getting into TV is harder than getting into theatre? Okay, most of you. Interesting. Okay, that's really interesting, because I'll be honest, I've found theatre way harder to get into than TV. But I've found it, particularly in London, and maybe most of us are not from London or living in London, and therefore we've possibly got a bit of a different perspective. But I found the theatre scene in London incredibly elitist and incredibly hard to get into, and it felt like I was constantly knocking on doors and they just weren't opening, constantly sending scripts that weren't probably even getting read, and I found it really, really difficult. Whereas my TV career had already started to sort of move forward. And I think the thing with TV is that people are way more willing to have conversations than you think they will be. You know, you can write to production companies and ask them to read your script, and they might just do that. You know, you can write to TV agents, and it might take them a really long time to read your script, but they will eventually do it. And I think the thing with screen stuff, with TV stuff versus theatre, is that with theatre, there is a very, very limited number of shows that can be programmed in that theatre throughout the year, right? Whereas with TV, they are constantly looking for new content. They are constantly looking for new shows, particularly as we now kind of have streaming services. You know, if you approach a production company, it is very, very, very rare that they will turn around and go, sorry, slate full, can't read anything. They just don't really do that, because they're always looking for something. They might feel like they've got loads of crime drama on their slate at the moment, but they don't have anything kind of romance comedy. So if you send them a crime drama, they might be like, oh yeah, we're not really looking for crime drama at the moment, we're really oversubscribed with that. But I bet your bottom dollar they will be looking for something. And a lot of the time you'll have general meetings with production companies, and you will have, they'll have read one of your scripts and they really like it, they really like your writing, blah, blah, blah. And you'll think and hope that they're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking to you about that script and maybe optioning that script. But 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, well, we've got this idea of something that we'd really like to make. And would you be interested in maybe writing this or writing on this? And then they might maybe invite you into a writer's room if they like you and they like your writing. And the key with kind of getting an agent, which you really do need if you're planning on working in TV, is proving that you can make money out of writing first. That's the really crucial thing. But I think a lot of people think that when they get an agent, their whole life is going to change and they're going to get all these opportunities that the industry has been hiding from them before, you know, they got access to an agent. But actually, it's really not true. You know, I think the hustle starts now, and you can email production companies, email agents as well, and just kind of just get yourself on their radar, even if you haven't made any money out of writing just yet. It's good to get yourself on the radar, and yeah, just start having conversations with people. And that email can literally just be like, here are a couple of spec scripts that I've written, try and make them a little bit different from each other in terms of genre maybe. I'd love to have a general meeting with you at some point, just to kind of getting to know each other session. It would be amazing if you could read the scripts that I've sent you, and I'd love to pick your brains at some point. And that's kind of how it starts. And you would be surprised at how many people are open to it, because it's literally their job to get as much content as possible and fill that slate up and get content from as many unique perspectives as possible as well. Rachel Shora. Hi, Rachel. You're on mute. I still can't hear you. It's making me sad. Hi.
I wasn't expecting that. I'd forgotten I'd switched my camera back on. Hi. Yeah, I'm Rachel. I graduated off a creative writing MA in 2014, focusing on the novel, which many years later, I'm just on the kind of in the very final stages of finishing that novel. But in the kind of interim time since graduating, I've also I do spoken word, so produced a spoken word show and got Arts Council funding for that, took it on tour around people's living rooms. So yeah, I self-produce, and I'm kind of just interested in how the ecosystem of writing works. I write about that a little bit. Yeah, so that's what brought me here today.
So when you say the ecosystem of writing, what do you mean specifically?
How writing works as an industry, how it works as a career. I mean, it's really interesting to hear you speak and hear you talk about you know, having an actual kind of paying career in writing, because having started pursuing novel writing, my MA finished, they got a novelist in who kind of gave us a talk at the closing party. He was like, yeah, you can't have a career in this anymore, there's no money. So that has kind of given me a real interest in how the money works and where the money is, and yeah, just, you know, how can you have a career as a writer?
Yeah, I totally get what she's saying about novel writing, because I've just written my first novel, and even just trying to get a literary agent, it's the hardest thing I have ever tried to do in my life. Like, getting a theatre, film and TV agent was way easier. Getting an acting agent was a little bit harder, but easier still. And getting a literary agent just feels like, yeah, banging my head against a wall. It's really difficult. And then even when you do, you know, most advances, a lot of it kind of depends on your, on who you are as an individual, in terms of the fact that if you're a woman, you're going to get paid, your advance is going to be significantly less than if you're a man. If you are of Black heritage, your advance is going to be like a fraction of what white authors get. So yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare, and in terms of novel writing, it is hard to know how anyone really makes money out of it. And I'd kind of say the same for theatre writing, small potatoes. And I think there are a lot of people, and there may be people even here in this session, who are like, I just want to write theatre and that's all I want to write. It's going to be really hard to make a sustainable career out of that. And I'm really grateful, especially given what's happened over the last year, that I've had my TV work, because I've had nothing in terms of theatre until this National Theatre Commission. And in fact, I've even had to say to one theatre that did commission me, look, it's okay if you can't pay me, because I know that you're all, you know, flat on your asses at the moment and it's a really difficult time. Let's just make a show together. But the only reason why I've had the freedom to kind of say that to them and still want to make a show is because, you know, I've sold my soul to continuing drama for the last year and a half. And I think it's really easy to be a purist about these things when you're writing. And I think a lot of people are, but ultimately TV is where the money is, and there is a lot of money in TV. And, you know, as I said before, it's actually it's easier to get into than you would think. And you can create a sort of sustainable life from doing it. And with that kind of talk about snobbishness, I wrote a list of like do's and don'ts earlier today, just thinking about this workshop. And one of the things that I was thinking about is about the content that we take in, and how we should like read everything and listen to loads of podcasts and watch everything. And I think the point when my ability as a writer really grew was when I started watching Love Island. I'm not joking. And a lot of the best working writers in the industry that you will meet, I was at a panel event the other day, and there were 3 writers who all have shows that have just been greenlit for major broadcasters. And one of the questions at the panel event was, what are you guys watching at the moment? And they were like, Australian Love Island, Married at First Sight, Selling Sunset, all these reality shows, because A, that's a moment where we can kind of switch off a bit. But the greatest gift of reality shows is it gives you the opportunity to study speech patterns, not how people speak when they are scripted, how people actually talk. And it's really useful. You know, I also wrote something earlier about day jobs, and you know, my day job before I went into writing and acting at full time was working at Radio 1 and 1Extra. And, you know, as day jobs go, it was decent, but I was just surrounded by famous people and radio people. And they were all talking about things that famous people and radio people would talk about. And then I went off to drama school for a year and took a job in a bar. And it was great because I was surrounded by loads of different people, a really broad cross-section of people having a really broad cross-section of conversations. And I think, you know, for those of you who are still kind of thinking about doing day jobs, I think really carefully about what day jobs are useful to your writing career. Working in bars and cafes and pubs are brilliant day jobs for writers because you get to have loads of conversations with a variety of different people. Same with things like care homes and stuff like that. It's also useful to have jobs that aren't too draining. So I did some temping for about a year in London, which was brilliant because you're basically being paid to just have desk space, sitting at somebody's reception. Maybe you've got to answer the phone every 20 minutes or whatever and like put some posts out and book a few meeting rooms. But the rest of that time is your own, and you're sat in front of a computer and you can get loads of writing done. So sorry, I'm going a little bit off topic on your point, Rachel, but I just thought I'd put those things out there because I think they're definitely things that I wish I'd known before years ago. And hopefully I would have got to where I am a little bit faster and maybe even further if I had. Julie, no.
Oh, sorry, Carla. Can I just jump in? I'm aware Adam and I are going to have to duck off in a minute due to the small people we've got responsibility for. We'll make you host. We're going to leave the room open so you guys can keep chatting because there's some really interesting points coming up. So it'd be great for that. There's a couple of questions in the chat, Carla. There's really bad earlier from Beth asking about if TV companies and channels won't necessarily accept unsolicited scripts, what's the best way to make an approach? And then one from Paul asking about what should actually be in a spec script. Can I hand those over to you as we thank you so much for joining, everybody. It's been really, really lovely to see you.
Thank you for running it.
We will we'll see you all again soon. Thank you, Carla.
All right, thank you. Bye. Okay, so we'll hear from Julie first, since I've just called on you, and then I'm going to go.
Oh, thank you, because I've got little ones upstairs that I've got to take to the dads. it's all the holidays is crazy. It's been really, really fascinating listening to what everybody's doing because you're answering quite a lot of questions, and I've been making loads of notes, as you could probably tell. So I write lots of different things, and I think one of the best pieces of advice I was given was to just keep writing loads of things and just keep sending loads out. And like you, Carla, I send out loads, probably about 150 attempts a year, won a few things the year before last, like big national awards, which was great. But the theatre one, I'm just hoping to hear about Hope Mill because I'm on their shortlist. And it's one of those, like somebody else was saying, even if you don't win, you think, oh, but there's 10 people they're going to work with, so that would be really interesting. What if I was one of them? You know, you're just trying to always keep going, aren't you? And I've got a book proposal for non-fiction book I've sent out, and then 4 television series to pitch. So I really liked what you said about just basically sending them out, because I'd never thought of doing that ever. I do the competitions, but I've never thought of just randomly sending them out. So that's a great idea. So that's on my notes.
Yeah, I think there's actually a message in the chat that somebody was asking about what needs to be in a spec script. Let's see if I can find it. How do you get around the ones who... Right.
I think it says re-script. Oh, sorry, I can't read. Re-script scripts. Oh, sorry. Original content scripts for shows already on TV or a mix of both. It's from Paul.
So original content.
Yeah.
Is what you want to send. There is one thing that you can send a script to that is like based on a TV show that already exists, and that's the Nickelodeon call out that they do every year, and they have a list on the website of loads of different TV shows that are made by Nickelodeon and also shows that are within the ABC family. And one of the shows that was on that list was Catastrophe. So I wrote an episode of Catastrophe, kind of picking up from where the previous season had left off and sent that in. But normally, they want you to have spec scripts that are completely original ideas, because that's what they're really looking for just in general. Completely original ideas. It's also good to send a pitch if you can. And your pitch should contain title, how many episodes you want it to be, and how many minutes each episode is going to be. You should also include a log line, so kind of your elevator pitch, just one line. And then you want to have some information on what the first episode is going to look like. So a very kind of, short sort of half-page beat sheet. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. A series pitch, so an overview of the whole series, so about a page for that. And that should be like, in episode 1, blah, blah, blah. By episode 2, blah, blah, blah. And then you want to have a little bit on characters. Maybe you can kind of have some images included for that, just to kind of give us an idea of what those characters might be like. And they can be images that you've pulled from different TV shows and films and theatre shows and whatever, just to give them the essence of who this character is. And then you want, possibly at the bottom of your series pitch, or after your series pitch, something about themes. What kind of themes will you be exploring in this show? And what they call comparables. Comparables are what TV shows could you compare it to, or what films could you compare it to? And that's probably the most important part of your pitch. What they want to know, what this feels like tonally. So that's pretty much it for your pitch. You've got to think about whose story are you telling? Who are the characters? Why are you telling it? How are you going to tell it? Why now? And who you think your audience is? Who will this appeal to? So that's what should be in your pitch. It should be maybe 3 to 4 pages long, no longer than that. And then also attach your spec script. You want to ideally, you can send a half-hour spec script. Some people are happy to read that, but usually it's better to send a full hour if you can, or an ITV Channel 4 hour, which is 46 minutes long, just because that gives them a better idea of who you are and what your voice is. So yeah, I hope that is useful.
Yes.
How do you get around people who say they don't take unsolicited scripts? You don't, is the answer to that. You don't. If they say they don't take unsolicited scripts, don't message them a script, because they won't like it. I think it's really important, and probably the biggest bit of advice I will give anybody who's entering into this business is have a sense of boundaries for yourself and for other people. Because if you don't have boundaries in this business, believe you me, you will get shat on from a great height. I constantly compare people in this industry, the people who are the gatekeepers, the people, you know, producers that you'll work with on shows, people who control things, they are like monkeys in a jungle, and they will hurl shit at you and not even realise that they've hurled shit on you. And you will have to tell them sometimes, you will have to turn around and say to them, I don't like that you did this. And I think a lot of people in this business are really scared of complaining. And I'll tell you what, the amount of opportunities that I have had as a result of complaining are massive. Like, I owe my entire career to the fact that I've not been afraid to turn around and go, that was a dick move. I'm not putting up with that. As Vinay Patel once wrote on Twitter, it's not a betrayal to ask your heroes to be better. And I think if you complain and the reaction is horrific, you know you never want to work with them again. And that's fine, because why would you want to work with somebody who isn't able to take on board feedback and isn't pleased to be made aware of failures within their venue or within their show or wherever. And at the end of the day, we should all want this industry to be better. But also it comes down to things like, you know, I had a script editor say to me about 6 months ago, ever since I've been working on this show, I've been working from 7 in the morning to midnight every single day, 7 days a week. And I said, cool. I mean, I don't work weekends, but cool. Because I was just like, that's your boundaries. Those are the boundaries that you have set up for yourself. My boundaries are that I don't work weekends. And that's that. And so you just kind of have to decide as writers, okay, what are my non-negotiables? What are my boundaries? You know, if I'm still working at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night and I haven't had my dinner yet, am I happy with that? Or am I going to feel shit about that the next day and feel like I'm getting walked all over? Am I happy to work weekends? If you are, great. If you're not, you know, make that a rule for yourself. And it works the opposite way as well. You know, if somebody's got on their website, we don't accept unsolicited scripts, and you break that boundary, then you're already saying from the beginning, I'm not going to be a great person for you to work with because you had one rule upon your website and I've already broken it. You know, it's a bit like when you advertise a room in your flat and you're like, women only, I only want to live with women or with people who identify as women. And then you get loads of men messaging you going, yeah, but I'm a really cool guy. And you're like, no, because, you know, if you're breaking that boundary from day one, you're going to be a nightmare to live with. So, you know, if they're saying they're not accepting unsolicited scripts, it doesn't mean it's not worth dropping them a line. You can email them and say, there's a script that I would love to send you. I know you're not accepting unsolicited scripts at the moment, but I do have spec scripts that you can read if you would like to. Bit about me. I'd love to have a general meeting if you're available for one. I'm currently unagented, but I'm working on it. If you have an agent, get them to do the hard work for you. Mahari, you've put your hand up. Hello.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yes.
I came on camera late, so I wasn't sure if you'd see me or not. I just want to say thank you, because you've touched on, I'm having a year where, so I kind of like graduated from an MA in 2011, but it's taken me a long time, so I've got a full-time job in an office. It's brilliant. I've got so many stories and people and characters, but I feel it's only this last year that I've really had the time to dedicate to it, because I'm now working from home. So what the pandemic's done, and I wish this had happened any other way, it's given me back a lot of time in terms of I don't have a commute and all that kind of stuff. However, I'm at the point of, I've had 2 rejections already this week. I'm pretty sure a third is coming, and I know why a third is coming. It's because as writers we talk to each other, and what exactly you said is like they don't seem to know. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but like it's because I've been talking to the writers, and it's from an opportunity, and I don't want to name it because I'm sure other people have applied for the same thing, where you're told like, right, if you're shortlisted, we'll contact you and ask you for more stuff. And it's through like, oh, well, my pals heard that they've been asked for extra thing. And it's like, I'm sitting here and I've not even had the rejection yet. So I'm sat going, are you going to contact me? Are you not going to contact me? So that's the thing at the minute that I'm finding really hard in terms of the Whisper network. No, we're great. It's lovely, you know, having lots of writer friends. But like, that thing, the Whisper Network, of going, can you not just tell us? Like, we know we've been rejected.
Yeah.
We expect that, but can you not just tell us?
There's been a lot of that going around recently, where some people just don't have the grace to just tell people they haven't got something, and it's really annoying, and it's been happening for years. And you know, I don't know what's worse, like getting the generic email, or you know, just not hearing anything at all. It's not knowing is probably worse, isn't it, than getting the generic email. But what I think is, and it's really difficult, but it's so easy to kind of like pin all your hopes and dreams on one thing that you've sent out, or one project that you've sent out, and then kind of like, you know, sit on your hands and wait and hope. And I think the only real way for our own mental health of kind of combating that as best we can is working on loads of different projects at the same time. And I know that some people's brains don't necessarily work like that, but for me, it's always helped. Like, I've got this folder of writing on my desktop, and inside that folder, there's like, I mean, there's probably 60, 70 different folders of different projects that I'm working on, and I could be working on 6 or 7 different things at once. And the great thing about that is, even if one of those things is just an idea that's a half page that I've written down, like, if everything else is going wrong, I can go back to that idea and go, yes, but I still have this.
That's exactly what happened to me last week with our production company. Dancing Ledge had mentioned it. Some of those things, so I don't have an agent, but I've done what you said. I've started taking this sort of little like steps towards contacting folk, and I've also, like you say, I'm primarily a playwright, but I've started to write up treatments and have a go and enter things, because like you said, I've kind of pinned my hopes on the BBC Channel 4 things, because I've had friends who've done them and their lives have just changed. But thanks to today, I actually feel, hang on a minute, I'm trying to find other ways to make this work for myself. There's lots of production companies out there. So yes, what happened to me last week was Dancing Ledge had put on Twitter about a mentorship scheme they were running, and you only get mentors by folk like Jessie Armstrong and, you know, the lady who does like Jerry Girls and stuff, and you only get onto it through your agent. So I don't have an agent, but I dropped them an email, like knowing what the answer would be. I said, oh, I saw you've got this mentoring scheme. How do we apply? Blah blah blah. And they came back to me and said, well, you do need an agent. However, we do accept one-page treatments. And I had a one-page treatment from something I'd actually entered 2 months ago, which I'm still waiting to find out about. But because I've started as practice, starting to send out little one-page treatments and stuff, I was like, I don't think they expected me to answer so quickly. Like half a second was like the email that came back. So that was kind of my experience. So yeah, that's worth doing, I think.
That is amazing. And, you know, it's exactly as I was saying before, isn't it? You'd be surprised at how open a lot of these production companies are if you just ask the right questions, and you're just upfront about what your position is, because there are loads of writers out there that are unagented that are fantastic. You know, writers, there's even writers, would you believe, for Hollyoaks who have been writing on Hollyoaks for years and don't have agents, which to me is just like mind-blowing. So, you know, you can work in the industry for quite a while without having an agent and do quite well. Beth has just asked, do you have a list of production companies who do accept unsolicited scripts? I'm afraid I don't. That sounds amazing. I don't know anybody in the industry who would have that as well, because unfortunately the thing about that is it can vary from like month to month. You know, some months those production companies might be accepting them and some months they might not. So yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. Lauren, you've had your hand up for a really long time. Lauren Nicole.
That's not meant to be. I'm so sorry. I think I answered your question before when you were saying about the theatre TV, and then apparently I've not lowered it. I'm going to lower my hand, sorry.
Sally, we haven't spoken to you yet. I can't hear you, Sally. I don't know why, because it doesn't look like you're on mute. Oh no. Okay, we'll speak to Laura. Sally, we'll see if you can figure it out. If not, put something in the chat, and we'll speak to Laura in the meantime. Hi, Laura.
Hi. I'm just going to check this one on Laura, because it's always like more than one Laura wherever you go. I think I might be finally once in my life. So yeah, I've been writing for quite a long time. From like teenager sort of thing. I only really thought about it as like an actual career option in the last sort of few years, I guess. Did like a master's in script writing, started sending things out, got a few short plays on stage. I finished my first full-length script just over a year ago, and I've been sort of redrafting it and things since then. Sent it to a few places. I've got like a reading recently, which was really good. I think hearing people, like, I don't send out stuff very often, not because of like confidence, but just like time, like around work and stuff. I just I can't do 150. I did 10 applications last year, maybe between 10 and 12 perhaps.
It's very time consuming, isn't it? It's really time consuming.
Yeah, and I think if I was going to try and do loads, I'm quite a perfectionist, and like I want it to be like the best thing ever. It's like I spend like quite a lot of time doing like a few really good applications rather than just like mass producing, I guess. Like that's just not an option.
Whereabouts in the country do you live, Laura?
I'm in Leeds.
You're in Leeds, okay, right. Yeah, and have you managed to kind of make connections with Leeds Playhouse yet?
Leeds Playhouse aren't great for like, I work for a house there. I did their Playwright 1 course back in 2017.
Yeah.
I know the creative, I don't know who's working right now with the furlough and stuff, because I know obviously Jackie is the literary person, she's who you normally send a script to. Gila used to be new writing, but she left just as the pandemic started, and she was taken over by Jenny Sullivan, who also is really lovely. I sort of know her a bit. I'm not sure if she's working there anymore or not. There's been a lot of changeover.
Yeah.
And the website is not always updated, so I have no clue who's working right now.
And are you more interested in theatre or TV?
Well, both, but I find theatre way more easy to sort of get stuff. Like I think someone said it in the chat earlier, there's loads of like small opportunities for theatres, whereas TV there seems to be a lot sort of much smaller number of options to send things out.
It sounds like the biggest thing that's kind of holding you back at the moment is the fact that you're working a lot, and therefore you're struggling to kind of find time to kind of apply for things, which is a really hard problem to have. I mean, I left London because I felt like I could maybe write an act from anywhere, and it felt really risky because everyone's like, you have to be in London to be successful and blah blah blah, and it's just absolute bullshit, because my career has gone from strength to strength since I left London, because I haven't had to spend such a long time chasing rent money, because it's so much cheaper to live here in Manchester. So my advice would be, find a way to work less, and that might mean a change of day job, where you're maybe trying temping or something like that, or it might mean moving home with your parents for a bit, or all of these things are kind of, it very much depends on your life circumstances. But if there's anything that you can do to work less so that you can focus more on this career more, then you've got to find a way to do it. I know that's like really difficult advice to hear, because it so depends on your life circumstances, but the more time you can spend on this, the more chance of success you'll have. And it's a frustrating and oversimplistic thing, isn't it, that, but it's just so true. It's so true. And also, the stress of having to find money can take so much away from your creativity, that it can be really draining, and you just want to be able to give this as much as you possibly can, and find ways to make the time that you do have work for you. I don't know how helpful that is. Do you think having a look in at script editing programs call-outs are also worth applying for to get an insight into how things work in television? And I mean, some people do go that route. I do know writers on continuing drama who have started out as script editors and kind of gone that route. My only concern with that is, if you're a script editor, 9 times out of 10, in fact, probably like 95% of the time, you're going to be contracted, and so working full-time Monday to Friday. And so I do know a lot of script editors that have kind of just ended up being script editors and not really having time to work on their own stuff. It's fine if you know that you want to write on that show. So there's script editors that have been script editors on Hollyoaks for like 5 or 6 years and are now writing on the show. But you have to be like, Hollyoaks is all I want to do, and it's all I need to know is how to write Hollyoaks. And if that's the journey that you want to go on, then great. But really, I think my advice would be to find a day job that is shit and doesn't drain your brain and doesn't make you think, oh, maybe I should just do this instead, because it's too shit for you to want to do for your rest of your life. Because all that day job needs to do is give you enough money to buy you time to write. Yeah, and that's it really. We should probably be wrapping this up soon. So, we've got something from Sally here, so I'll just read what Sally's put. Apologies about my mic. Graduated from Salford Uni. She put on a one-woman show. Masters in poetry. Plan to create poetic theatre. Mainly curious about how people got their start and developed a career for themselves. She feels like a lot of her questions have been answered. Amazing. So that's great, Sally. Thank you. And also, you know, the spoken word thing is such an amazing route into theatre. And when I was at the Fringe, there were loads of people who were doing kind of spoken word shows, and they always went down really, really well. So that is your superpower. So keep using it. In fact, the TV show that I'm writing, that I'm in the writer's room for at the moment, there is a spoken word element to that show. So yeah, you never know how that skill can serve you. And ultimately, spoken word is storytelling, isn't it? And it's a muscle that you can keep flexing. So any final questions before we wrap this up? Amazing. Okay, I think we're good. So I just wanted to very quickly, before I let you go, I'm just going to look at my little do's and don'ts list that I did before. I think I've like covered most of the things on the list. I think, one thing that I haven't said that I feel like I do need to say before I let you all go, because it's a really important two things. The first thing is never feel like asking somebody for a meeting or asking somebody to read something that you have written is a favour that you are asking, because it's not a favour. You are helping solve their creative problem, in the sense that the person you are speaking to is either managing a building or a theatre company or a production company, and it is literally their job to find new work and find new voices. So by offering them an opportunity to speak to you, somebody who does have a unique perspective and somebody who is a new voice, you're doing them a favour, not the other way around. And please think about that when you approach people. Don't be approaching people being all apologetic and, do you have time? If you've maybe got time for me. They have time for you. They should make time for you, because you are a special and unique voice. And don't be afraid of approaching people and sending stuff out. Boldly send them an email. And I said this in a previous session that we had. So some of you might have heard this already. Always have in the back of your head, what would Tarquin do? And Tarquin is like my little posh, male, white, super privileged, suited and booted alter ego who is full of entitlement and would never think twice about walking into a room and expecting everyone to want to read his stuff and expecting to be paid for everything he does. We should all be paid for everything we do, guys. Like, don't let people think that they can't afford to pay you, because everybody can afford to pay you at least something. And if they can't afford to pay you, they shouldn't be running a production company, they shouldn't be running a building, they shouldn't be running a theatre company, and they certainly shouldn't be doing call outs. So remember that. And feedback. I've had a lot of people ask me in the past about feedback and how to deal with feedback, because a lot of people can be really sensitive about receiving feedback and really afraid of receiving feedback. And I think feedback is a gift, because feedback is, when somebody's giving you feedback, especially if it's detailed and constructive feedback, they have taken the time to read your stuff and to write you that feedback, or to, you know, have a meeting with you and give you that feedback. And that means they are on your side. They want you to win. They want this to be the best it can be. But with that said, feedback isn't an order. It's not a demand. It's not, you must write it like this, otherwise this play or this TV series will be shit. It's a provocation. It's, have you thought about this? And maybe think about doing that this way. And you don't have to necessarily do that. But again, it's about sort of picking your battles and, you know, being open to even trying things. I know a lot of you here are actors, and sometimes when you're working on a play or something, a director will give you a note or ask you to try something, and in your head you're like, that's going to be fucking shit, that sounds insane. But committing to it wholeheartedly and proving why it's a bit shit is definitely the way to go, rather than standing there going, I'm not doing that, that's fucking shit, go away. So yeah, just be open to feedback, but pick your battles. And if you feel like, I think the thing to always remember whenever you're writing anything is, what is the message of this piece? What is the true essence of this piece? Because it's only when that becomes compromised that you really need to fight against those notes. And otherwise, it's all about being open. AS has raised a hand. Hello, AS. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, I put the question in the chat, but I wasn't sure if you'd seen it. I was wondering if you had any kind of resources to recommend for structuring and plotting, especially for the redraft, to make sure that your script is polished.
Yes. So I can send my Excel spreadsheet to the guys at Box of Tricks that I use pretty much to plot like everything that I write. I've also got this kind of arc diagram that helps me plan story arcs. So I can send them to the guys at Box of Tricks, and if any of you want access to that, then I'm sure they'll be happy to.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye and let you all crack on with your day. But thank you so much for being such wonderful participants and so open and honest in your thoughts and feelings and questions. And yeah, if you have any more thoughts or questions or just want to stay in contact, I'm Karla with a K, Sweet on Twitter. And same on Instagram as well, if that's your preferred method of social media. And I'm sure, no doubt, all our paths will cross at some point again in the future, particularly when we are allowed to go to events and, you know, see people again. All right, thanks so much.